Welcome to the Social Impact Journal, the podcast where we talk to change makers driving social impact around the world. I'm your host, Jack Farron, and this podcast is produced in collaboration with Rural Inclusion. In episode 2, I talk with Benson Njuguna and hear his fascinating story from selling sausages in the streets of Kenya to becoming an expert in the technology industry and using blockchain to increase social impact. Welcome everybody to episode 3 of the podcast, and I'm so excited today to be with my good friend Benson Njuguna. Benson, how are things?
Hey Jack, how are you? I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invite.
No problem, Benson. So for the audience, me and Benson met back in late 2021, and Benson is actually one of Rural Inclusion's ambassadors in Kenya. So we've known each other for a while now, and Benson has a great story. So I think let's dive straight in. The podcast wants to know, Benson, who is Benson Njuguna?
As you rightly stated, you actually pronounced my name very well, Njuguna. So Njuguna is a Kenyan name. I am from Kenya, currently living in Nairobi. And my background is in computer science and business, and I'm working with Acre Africa, the biggest microinsurance company for agriculture in Africa. And also I am an Ethereum Foundation Fellow, so Ethereum network, the biggest, most secure network for smart contracts. And so I live in Nairobi, and I'm a father of 3 kids, and my passion is using technology to solve the world's problems, especially financial inclusion. Yes, that's Benson.
Thank you so much, Benson. So you mentioned you're currently in Nairobi, Kenya. So for those in our audience that do not have much knowledge around Kenya, maybe you can share some stories, some facts and figures about your country.
Oh, Kenya is the best country in the world. So Kenya, we're in the east of Africa, with current population is around 53 million, give or take. And we're really very famous for wildlife and our good vacation spots over summer holidays. In fact, the Queen of England, I know Jack, you're from England, when she was made queen, she was actually in Kenya for her honeymoon. So it's one of the best places to visit for a safari. And in terms of my field is in agriculture, we are the best in tea, coffee, and cut flowers. We actually have a high exportation of this in most countries in Europe and in other countries of the world. And and other things. The first woman to get a Nobel Peace Prize was actually a Kenyan, Wangari Maathai. So we are very proud for that. And also, we are the pioneers of the most successful mobile money network called M-Pesa, in which, in fact, currently in Kenya, 96% of the households, everyone has a mobile money account in terms of the household. So, but in terms of even the SIM cards, it's even more than 96% of the adults population, because even the kids have. So it's really one of the biggest things in terms of tech that has come out of Africa to the world.
Thank you so much, Benson. There's so much going on in Kenya from the sounds of it. I know. I know you're a fellow for the Ethereum Foundation and working with the largest agricultural microinsurance company in Africa. But I would love to hear where this story all began. So what was your first job, Benson? And what were the type of things that you learned from that?
Interesting. My first job, Jack, was not in technology. My first job was in fast-moving consumer goods. So I worked for my dad immediately after school. That was my first job after college. Who is at the time was selling sausages. So came into the business with new ideas. I was told him, you're using legacy ways of doing things. Let me show you how we can do things using new ways as a young man. But little did I know, there's a lot of things inside that you can only experience when you get in. Looking from outside, you think they're not doing their best or they're not using innovation, but then I got to learn a lot. And it really has taught me a lot of things in life. In the sausage, we call it hawking in Kenya. So we sell this small. I think it's sausage. Everyone knows sausages. Yeah. So yeah, that was my first job with Jack.
That's great, Benson. I haven't heard that story before off any of our last guests. So how did you then transition from working in the selling sausages to going into the world of tech?
Thank you. So that is immediately after school, I did that. But my background had done computer science, so I was good in programming. My mindset for solving problems was still, where can software fit here? Because it seems people are doing very repetitive, very inconveniencing, using inefficient strategies of achieving things. So my mind was always in software. So after a while, I went I did apply for an incubation center with a business. I started a business called Mpangaji Solution. Mpangaji means somebody who's renting. So in Nairobi, usually when you're coming from the village, because I was born in a town outskirts of Nairobi called Naivasha. So moving to Nairobi, at some point when I went to get school and I was looking for houses, I really got conned. People tell you, send some money, we'll look for houses for you, but then you never get the house. They're just con men. So I felt this needs a solution. So part of my transition from the sausage was building that business, which I was nominated top 50 budding entrepreneurs in Kenya in the program, and we went for some incubation. I ran the solution, it's nobody told you entrepreneurship in tech is hard, so it didn't succeed. It didn't go well, and so I went to start teaching people on programming. And so in my teaching, I went to do more. I was teaching more software and doing a lot of system analysis. So I was really meeting most of the business people and translating their solutions into software. So it really helped me grow. And so that's how I have been doing it, and transition to a software consultant in blockchain, because now most people have known me as the guy who can help you digitize your business. So with that, it has really helped me grow into that career path. And I can basically say that's how I came to tech.
Thank you, Benson. And as you moved on and you've got more involved into the blockchain sector, I understand that you are an Ethereum Foundation Fellow. Am I right in thinking that you're one of the only fellows in the whole of the African continent?
You're not wrong. Fortunately, I'm grateful that I was the first fellow in the first cohort of the Ethereum Foundation Fellow, and the first one, and currently so far the only one in Africa. I'm quite grateful for the opportunity that was given with Ethereum Foundation. I think I'm grateful for the networks. It helped me get to learn a lot, meet the actual core contributors get to understand what other parts of the world are doing, and gives me the boost to even be a better consultant to people looking for blockchain solutions. Yeah.
Thank you, Benson. Before we go any further, maybe we can dive into blockchain itself. What exactly is blockchain technology and Ethereum that you are referring to? What is Ethereum? How does that come into this?
So, Jack, in simple terms, I would say blockchain, simply put, is just a mechanism of storing information. So you store it in a cryptographic way. Initially, we used to store information on a notebook, and this notebook, you'd call it a ledger. So storing this cryptographic information in an online ledger, which is one shared among many people. So everybody gets a copy of the same ledger. So that's why it's called a shared ledger. And now you record your information. A good example would be exchange between two people. One person is buying land, the other one is selling. So this transaction, everybody will come with their notebook and say, I bought land from this guy. The other one to say, I sold land to this guy. So the one selling might say, I sold the land to this guy at 100K. The one who bought said, I bought it at 90K. Now, everybody has their own ledger. Who do you believe at the end of the day if they go to court? This one says, I bought it at 90. This one says at 100. So it brings an aspect of most transactions people actually perform because they trust each other. So if I say 100, you're sure the other guy will say 100. But then it's not guaranteed. So there's this problem that lack of trust between two people, lack of trust between two transactions. But now blockchain, assuming this ledger was online, these two individuals would record on one place and the other one will not edit. It will just be whatever one said, using different mechanism of verification. It's regarded as truth and it's added on chain. So that's, in simple terms, is a place to store and cannot be manipulated. It can be trusted. It's transparent for any party to see the correct and right information. So yeah, maybe now Ethereum, let me say, go ahead and explain as well. Ethereum network is one of the many blockchain networks. It's called the layer 1 EVM1 network, which apart from storing information on this ledger, it can store software code. So it can store if an algorithm and give it a condition to act in a certain way. So this adds another layer of possibilities. If you're able to do a software code, give it instructions to perform, if certain conditions are met, it means the trust, you can execute many things that can be trusted, because we know software code algorithms can do wonderful and marvelous things. But now imagine nobody can tamper with it and change it to suit them. Whatever was written can be trusted. It opens a world of great possibilities that we've been waiting for since we were born. Yeah.
Thank you, Benson, for that explanation. So when many people think of blockchain, naturally crypto comes into the conversation. So the perception is of Bitcoin and volatile investments. But you mentioned around the use case of blockchain in a land transaction to increase trust and increase transparency. So on the Social Impact Journal, we are talking to founders and change makers about how technology can be used to drive impact. So what are the key areas where blockchain can be used to drive social impact?
Oh, great. Thank you. So I'll tell the people who know only the price of Bitcoin and even the Ether, that the fact that such currencies can be run on blockchain shows the power of blockchain, that no one person can write their own thing and the other person is swindled. So it brings that distribution and good things that a centralized bank cannot. So Other sectors that can really benefit would be the finance sector. We have a lot of financial solutions that have come in on the blockchain and things that normally would be very hard to operate and scale very fast. There's access, for example, credit. We know the world has a very high appetite for credit, about $3 trillion, and so we need all sources to satisfy this, and blockchain opens a door for many of these things to take place. We know the insurance sector. Actually, Jack, one of the projects that helped me get the Ethereum Foundation Fellowship program is the microinsurance project that I did, where we placed a smart contract used for monitoring whether to pay a farmer claims or not. So it really helped to speed up the claims process, which was a typical problem that every person complained. Every farmer would say, "Oh, you don't trust insurance. You never pay on time. You never pay. I don't know. I don't have any information." So we helped solve the transparency and the speed issues and the non-tampering. So whatever is the trigger determined to pay, because we use index insurance. I'll talk about it later in some other time. But yeah. So the insurance sector is one of the areas that really can be solved with blockchain, can be used to solve the problems. We also have the art sector, the NFTs, the musicians, the artists that draw. There are very many applications that art can be used. Environment, we've been hearing of regenerative finance, the ability to track different things in terms of, for example, carbon sequestration, and tracking this on blockchain and helping the market through blockchain. All these things are still great potentials, things that blockchain can help. So social impact fund, the donations that come in, now anybody can create a long-term relationship in terms of funding with the actual beneficiaries of the fund, and they could see how they received, how they used, where it went, what's the impact directly, without many intermediaries. So that's still an area of high disruption. And majorly others would be legal, digital contracts, like I talked about, things like the escrow, which we still see having problems. For example, the example I just gave, you could decide to give your land deal through an escrow, but then we've realized even the escrows themselves can be the problem, where the money is used up for other purposes not intended for the transaction. So with blockchain, it helps to solve such problems. Yeah.
Benson, you mentioned around donations, and I think that's a fascinating topic if we're looking at trust and transparency, because if a donor is giving funds to a project in a developing country, they need to be assured that that money is being spent in the most appropriate way. And how exactly does that work on a blockchain? So let's say for myself, if I give a donation of $100 to a project in Kenya, for example, how can blockchain assist me with having that visibility and oversight?
Very good. I'll use a good example of something currently taking place. There's an organization called Diva Protocol doing derivatives, and what they're doing is, so a donor would go on a platform, for example, and they would decide on a project to fund. For example, I want to fund farmers undergoing drought in the Horn of Africa. So if there's drought, let my donations go out. If there's no drought, let me hold it. It can be recycled into another donation. So what happens is a donor would come in, put in some money converted to crypto so that it's stored on a smart contract, and then the satellites monitor the ground to check if there's drought or not in a certain location. If there is drought, Then it's a smart contract, which is, as I said, an automatically executing code would execute based on the weather conditions, which nobody can tamper with that. So it's getting this information from an oracle. We have people doing good oracles like Shamba Network in Kenya. So such a thing. And then automatically the farmers have wallets. In Kenya, we have farmers who have wallets on simple phones, which we call feature phones. That's not smartphones, just button-based phones. But with a USSD like star 254 hash, they would access their own account where they could see their seed phrase, where they could see the money that has come in, where they could withdraw. Once they withdraw, this money is in, for example, is an off-ramp, like one example, Kotani Pay, Bitlipa. They would now get their money from the pool, from the donor pool to their individual wallets through an off-ramp. They convert it to mobile money. So the donor seated can see the track, can trace their money from when they put it in the pool, what conditions were met for it to be released, when it was released, on what time, what date, what amount went to who, how it was off-ramped and moved to M-Pesa. They can get even the M-Pesa confirmation directly to the farmer. And all this can be proven that it has been paid to the right person for the right reason at the right time, and no broker, only transaction fees. And we know on-chain, some of the chains, depending on what you use, the costs are negligible. So that's a perfect example of how donations can be enhanced.
Thank you, Benson. That's really interesting for me. So the donor can see the whole picture, and actually all the way to a deposit on the mobile money account of let's say a farmer in Kenya. So it's all about building trust, transparency, and removing unnecessary intermediaries in the process.
Exactly. You said it right. Yes.
Okay, brilliant. So let's move on to that microinsurance project that you discussed with Acre Africa. You mentioned that you had installed a smart contract with a trigger to accelerate the claim payments to policyholders. So first of all, I would like to understand, who are these policyholders? Was this a project in Kenya? I guess they're farmers, given that Acre Africa is an organization in the agricultural space. So please just give further detail about this project. I'd be keen to hear more.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So yes, the clients are farmers. So let me start from the top. The problem we were trying to solve for the farmers is resilience against climate change. So we've seen over the years the change in climate has really affected the rainfall patterns for the smallholder farmers. Now, such a pattern in any other place would be just a normal climate change issue. But for us, down in the ground, is actually costing people's lives, costing people's livelihood, and costing a generation to remain in poverty. So a smallholder farmer typically has a quarter of an acre, and they use it to plant, for example, for subsistence and food. They rely on rainfall because they can't afford drilling boreholes for irrigation or any other mechanisms of pumping water. So when there is no rainfall as they expected and they've planted, it means they lose everything. Now they lose the money they've put in. This money, probably there was something they borrowed their cousins, because the other problem is that most of our smallholder farmers are not bankable, and they don't have a bank account. They don't have a way of proving credit history, so they don't have access to credit. Now, you see, if, for example, now there is climate change, there is no rainfall, there is drought, then they lose whatever they had invested in that piece of land, which affects them in terms of food, affects them in terms of money, which means their children will not go to school, which that means their children will not get opportunities like other children, which means they will continue with the same farming, with the same problems, and always in that cycle that never ends of poverty. Now, the solution that brilliant minds came up with was insurance. So assuming they spend this money and there's something that happens to the climate, then pay insurance helps them to go back again and replant. But the insurance solutions that were there were legacy insurance solutions meant for the large scale farmers. So it's like taking a huge product and just chopping it into small pieces, trying to fit. But it was very expensive, still didn't make sense. So we needed something that would be very cost efficient and not expensive for the farmer and gives more transparency. So that's where we moved from indemnity based, where somebody has to visit the ground to check if there's loss or not, which was very expensive. And also we had to send people on ground to sell using paper forms, which was very expensive. So parametric is what was the solution. So using satellite check on the soil moisture levels of the crop, if they fall below a certain amount, give it a trigger, call it, this will be the trigger. So we were actually using satellite to monitor a small piece of land for a farmer. If there's no water to a certain level, we know they didn't rain, we know the soil didn't retain the water, we know the crop didn't make it, then we're able to pay very quickly because you see it's scientific, it's quantitative. But then questions about which triggers are you using? Are you not able to change? You can tamper with them. Then now blockchain comes in, it solves this problem. If a trigger is set, then it's set. Everybody can see and know this is a trigger. If a payment happens, we can know. If they are due to be paid, we can know. And also the efficiency now, with that trust, you can easily integrate to a financial system which can automatically pay, which makes the claims process become faster. So with achieving just that, we're able to see farmers' livelihoods, both in terms of food, both in terms of income, is secured against these effects of climate change.
Benson, this is so interesting. I have quite a number of questions on this. So first of all, what type of coverage are you offering? You mentioned that you're using satellites to monitor the weather data. So is this coverage for drought or for floods or any other weather events that a farmer may face?
Mostly the perils, we call them the perils, is the drought or excessive rainfall, or we call it lack of soil moisture or excess soil moisture, which can be attributed to the same thing. So if there's more rainfall, more water, soil moisture. So yes, so this is what, using satellite, you're able to tell the moisture levels and compare that against phenological models, which, for example, would say if they have maize requires this percentage of water. And looking at the satellite, it has received this amount of water. Therefore, it did not germinate. Therefore, pay this farmer. What do you pay them? How much premium did they pay? This. So pay them according to the premium they paid. And it helps them go and buy other seeds and replant before it's too late in the season. Yeah.
That's understood. Thanks, Benson. You mentioned that the policyholders, the average farmer, has around 1/4 of an acre, which is a really small piece of land. So when you're using satellites to measure that data, how can it be accurate on such a small piece of land?
So thank you. So it depends with the data source. So where, for example, I was speaking about rainfall, precipitation. We have satellite that looks at precipitation, but then with advancement, we now use satellite that looks at soil moisture. So precipitation, the best distance you'd check would be 1 kilometer by 1. But now we're able to look at 100 meters by 100 meters, which is a hectare. So which we can really narrow down to the level that actually to get what that piece of land is experiencing.
Wow, I mean, that's so accurate. So you're being able to really track this at a farm level without going and having the travel costs and let's say a loss of someone similar to go out and measure. And you mentioned around the affordability of these policies, because that's of course going to be a huge factor. So
exactly
for a maize farmer in Kenya with a 1/4 acre, if they're looking for coverage for drought or excessive flood, what might be the premium that they pay for a season?
So the good thing again about parametric, it's can prorate if we are the ones to set the minimum. So average minimum that we set would be around $2.50 to up to so most of them we encourage them to pay $10 because the cost of production that they would spend on 1 acre is around 150. So if they have a quarter an acre and they pay $10, it means they are well covered because it's a ratio between 6.5 premium rate for people who understand insurance to 6.5 from 4 at times 10 depending on the distribution model. But for simplicity of mathematics, if you pay $10, you get cover worth $100.
Understood. Okay. So, and there's 2 seasons per year. So is that an annual price or for 1 season?
So that's a season price. So the next season again, then you get to buy another cover.
Understood.
Each season is monitored differently because of the length of the season, etc.
Yes.
Yeah.
How are you educating farmers about this? I guess you're not talking about the actual technology behind, maybe the benefits that the technology brings. I'm just trying to understand how you can communicate this to a farmer who may have never had an insurance policy before.
So mostly we have people on ground. We call them village-based champions. So the boots on ground, people who've been trained on insurance and financial inclusion. So they would call meetings, go to the local villages, go to different towns and call for meetings because each of them has a list of farmers that they manage or supervise. So they would then train them using pamphlets that we send to them, booklets, etc. So that then the farmers are able to understand, also through word of mouth, visiting their farms. So that's a common method that we use.
Thank you, Benson. So you're of course working in the rural areas, and I guess you have some interesting stories maybe of working with farmers and using this type of technology. Is there any that you can share with me?
Interesting stories of the ground training is so one of the most interesting thing is the language. We have to speak. You have to translate insurance to local language. You have to use analogies like the watchman analogy. If you pay a watchman and to guard, if they're not, the no thugs come, do you ask them for the money back? Such analogies, and so the language or our way of translating meaning to them is very important. So that's why we use people from the village who speak their own language. But then we find small cases of mis-selling or misinterpretation, which can be expensive. You see, the consistency of the message is relative based on the conveyor of the message. So if the conveyor of the message sends a different message in one corner and tomorrow they've forgotten, they send out a different one, then it means we have to constantly train them every season so that they can remember. So that's one of the challenges or funny stories that we see on ground. Yeah.
Thank you, Benson. So a question I ask and plan to ask to a lot of my guests around where do social entrepreneurs draw their inspiration from it, and much of this happens when individuals travel in different countries and that they learn from new places, maybe in a conference or an event or meeting a new partner. So during your career, is there one particular country that you've been to which stands out in terms of things that you learned, or your favorite country in terms of enjoyment?
Yeah, in terms of traveling, yes. There's one particular country in Latin America called Colombia. So I really enjoyed my time in Colombia because of I don't know, I felt there were a lot of similarities to Kenya. So I was surprised. I felt I didn't know Latin America would be really um, based. I knew the economies there, but I didn't know they would have such similarities. And one interesting thing, especially, was the sausage vendors in the street. So I was raised up with sausage vendors. In fact, one of my inspiration to work in financial inclusion to elevate lives was because of this sausage vendors that I grew up seeing, who are my friends. Some lives, some were in the same state for many years, others their life changed. Anyway, so these sausage vendors in Colombia really impressed me. And the state and how they were and how they do it is exactly the same way we do it in Kenya. Yeah, and I felt if we solve the problems that I am running around sleepless nights trying to solve in Kenya, I will not have to repeat a different model. I will just pick the model and fix it in Colombia and larger Latin America, and it would 90% chance would work. So that was really encouraging, and I was very happy to travel there.
Amazing. Was that recently or quite a few years back?
Yes, recently. It's last year, in
Okay,
October.
great.
So it's just this a few months ago. Yeah.
Brilliant. So looking forward to this year, 2023, do you have any key goals, either personally or professionally?
Yes. So my goal is to continue providing a more integrated model for the farmers. So yes, we've sold insurance. Good. You've given insurance to smallholder farmers. You've saved them. You've saved their income. You've saved their food. What next? Where do they get this money to plant in the first place? Do they borrow? Do they have to? Is it because of a saving? Is it where are they getting it? So my aim is to look into more of a way of solving the financial problems, how they can get money to their pocket to start with, how they can retain it, so ways of saving and investing, and also market. So whatever they plant, they can plant, but at the end of the day, they don't get a place to sell. This means they still don't have money. So you need to solve the market problem. So that's my vision for this year. How can we bring all this together? Definitely technology is a key player. That's why, a tech person is concerned. And definitely not alone. You have to work with different partners and make sure this thing is a reality. So I'm really looking forward to be working with different partners and different players to see this through, that farmers get money in their pocket and sustain it for their future.
Benson, you've educated us all on microinsurance today. But as you mentioned there, that's only one part of the puzzle or the component, and around saving, actually having that money and being able to sell their goods. It's all in one circle. So I wish you all the best for this year, and researching on those different issues and solutions. Before I let you go, a question I asked to all of my guests is if you had your own social impact journal and you had one page to send a message out to a young person who is maybe looking to get into the technology space and they want to use technology to do good in the world, what one piece of advice would you be able to share with them?
From experience is take that step with what you have. So I usually give this example to my wife. If you're given a picture, a puzzle, for example, it's a Mona Lisa, fix these pieces to fit to display the Mona Lisa, and you're given a bag with all the pieces. By the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much you spend, you will definitely crack it. So each and every one of us as young men and even older men, young women, older women, we have a bag of pieces, and you have all the pieces in that bag. You might place them on the table and lose hope and say, oh my God, it's very hard. Will I ever finish this pick? But you have all the pieces. So it's up to you. Just start with what you have in your pocket, start with what you have in your bag, put on the table and start fixing one piece at a time, one piece at a time, because you always have it. So that's what I would say. Just start, go apply for that scholarship, apply for that business incubation, apply for that funding. You might think your company or your idea is not good enough and there's funding. Apply for that. You have the English, you have your laptop, you have your phone, even if it's a mulikamulizi, start with it. Start with that idea. And one other thing, partnership is key. So you might want to do everything because you want to look at the end results so that you get everything. Look out for destiny helpers. Look out for that person that can help you take your product, your idea to the next level. They're always hanging around you. They are also one of the pieces of the puzzle already in your bag. So look around you, think of the people you know, and start discussing, start speaking. Don't keep your idea to yourself. Your idea, you might think it's very unique, it's in your mind, it will change the world. You don't want to share it. You'll find yourself at 50 still having the same idea and looking at someone who has implemented it, and you'll say, I had that idea when I was young. So please share your ideas. Nobody will implement it as good as you would do it. And if you came up with a good idea and it's still stolen, then you're the same person, you're the source. You'll come up with an even better one. So please share, please look for partners, use the pieces that you have. Thank you.
Benson, this has been great fun. And to summarize that last point around, everyone has the pieces to complete the puzzle. It's just how to arrange them. How can someone reach out to you? Are you active on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram? What's the best social media?
Oh, the best social media is Instagram. Oh, sorry, it's Twitter. Twitter at Ben Njuguna. Also on LinkedIn, Benson Njuguna.
I can share your links to your LinkedIn and Twitter profile in the show notes, as well as some of the projects you mentioned from Acre Africa and
yes,
the other projects that you mentioned. So if anyone wants to reach out to Benson, then there you have it. Twitter and LinkedIn is the place to go. Benson, thank you so much for being part of the Social Impact Journal and sharing all of your wisdom and your journey from selling sausages to being a technology expert, and then seeing sausages also being sold again in Colombia.
Yeah. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Jack, for having me. It's an honor, and thank you very much. I hope we change the world. It's about impact.
Thank you so much, Benson.